Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. I couldn't wait to show you this first bloom on Buddy Orchid. This is the beautiful little, not so miniature Phalaenopsis that I have growing in the Better Grow Orchid grade Spangum Moss, and I am being rewarded with lots of beautiful blooms this time, so I just couldn't wait to share this beautiful bloom with you. I was mixing up some fertilizer this morning, and I've had several questions about how I fertilize, and I thought I would go over some of those questions that I've had and just kind of show you, take you step by step through some of the things that I do when I mix up my fertilizer. And this is the fertilizer I mixed up this morning. I used the Better Grow Orchid Plus. This is a 20, 14, 13. That means it's 20 parts nitrogen, 14 phosphorus, and 13 potassium. So let me show you what I did. I mixed up a quarter of a teaspoon. That's 1.25 milliliters per gallon of water. That is a low dose. On the back of the bag, it will tell you to use a teaspoon. I like using this quarter teaspoon a whole lot better. My orchids grow very well and I don't have any roots burning. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So the way that I start my fertilizer, mixing it up, is I take my triple reverse osmosis water. Now, a lot of you have asked me about my TDS pen. Okay. This is going to tell you the total dissolved solids that are in a solution. This is very easy to use. Okay, let me just kind of show you here. Okay, I have 5 parts per million in this reverse osmosis filtered water. Okay, I don't need to rinse that off because it's just plain old water. Okay, now my pH pen. I'm trying to do this with one hand, pardon me. Okay, I always keep the cover on it, and when you're taking your pH reading, you're going to stir this around in your water. Sometimes I stir for about 2 minutes. It takes it a while, but even the pH strips that you buy at the pet store, they're going to take you, it's going to take a full 2 minutes for those to process as well. So actually this is being pretty quick. Now the reason why this is important to me is because I changed my filtration system about a month ago that constantly gave me a reading between 6.0 to 6.2. And this filtration system is very different. It's a newer one, and I can taste the difference in my water. It is more acidic, as you see. Okay, so do you see how it's bouncing between let's see. Let's call that about a 5 point. I can't believe it's still going down. Do you see why it's kind of important to know what your pH is before you start? I think I'm going to call this about a 5.3. It's still going. 3.2. Okay, let's call this 5.32. It's bouncing between 5.2 and 5.6. Okay, the thing about the pH pen, you have to cover it. And I'm trying to do this with one hand, sorry. You have to cover it, and you have to store it with the pen side pointing down, like this. Okay. So that's how you take your TDS readings and your pH readings. Okay, so I was very surprised when I got that new filtration system and the pH was very different. So that's the reason why I encourage you all to check your pH to make sure you know what pH you're starting out with, because that's going to have a lot to do with the pH of your fertilizer solution. Okay, so this morning I'll just kind of go through this. I mixed up a quarter of a teaspoon per gallon, and I got a 5.5 pH, 5.56, pardon me, pH and 172 total dissolved solids. Okay, that 5.56 is a little bit low for me. I like to raise it up to about 5.8, and I'll show you why. Okay, this is my Snoopy notebook. This is my Orchid note-taking notebook. Whenever I see something that I need to refer to often, I write it down and I keep it in this notebook. So I have my hydroponic pH range. So as you see, this is all the ranges for all of the different things that you're going to be using with your, the main elements that you're going to be fertilizing your orchids with. Now keep in mind, when you're using the Better Grow, there is no calcium in the Better Grow. So you need to use some CalMag to get a calcium source to feed your orchids with. And I have a video from the beginning of March about that if you need to go back and watch that to make sure that your orchids are getting enough calcium. But as you see, 5.8 is kind of your sweet spot as far as pH is concerned to feed your orchids with. So I like to get it as close to 5.8 as I possibly can. That's a really good pH while you're fertilizing. Okay, so I made a note to myself. I added a tiny amount of baking soda to increase my pH to 5.8. When I'm saying a small amount, okay, it took about that much. Really. It takes tiny, tiny amounts of baking soda to increase your pH. So don't get a great big old pinch of it, and add that to your water. Add it a little tiny bit at a time, because it's amazing how fast this will increase your pH. And I'm going to give you all a little tip of how you can get this stuff to dissolve in your water easier. I keep my measuring spoons in this bag, and as you see, this is a granular type of a fertilizer. And so I used to just try to add this directly to my gallon of water, and the solids would just keep falling to the bottom of the gallon. I mean, it was like I would get to the bottom of my gallon, and it was like you could see all this stuff floating around down in the bottom of that gallon of water. So what I do is I warm up a cup of water. Now this is not boiling, this is just warm. I got this idea when I was making Jell-O one day. You know how you put the Jell-O, you dissolve it in a small amount of water before you add it to the rest of the 2 cups of Jell-O. Well, what I did was I just take some warm water and I let that dissolve in this warm water. I'll stir and I'll stir until I see that everything is dissolved and the mixture kind of starts turning clear again. You'll be amazed at how well this works. And then when you put it in your gallon of water, you don't get all that sediment on the bottom of your container. So this is really I found this is a really good way to get this to dissolve. If you're working with a liquid fertilizer, you probably don't need to do this, but when you're working with a granular one, I've done this for a long time, and I'll just let that sit there for just a minute. Do you see how it's starting to clear? It's dissolving those solids. And then I'm going to add that to my gallon of water, and you're going to find that's a lot easier. Now, let me tell you something else about this settling. You need to shake this up really well even while you use it, because there will be some solids still at the bottom, but not nearly as many. So I hope that little tip helps you all. Okay, this is very well dissolved now. You can see there's no sediment on the bottom of it. So now I'm going to go ahead and pour this into my gallon of water. I'm going to give this a really good shake. I can't find my lid. I don't know what I did with it, but I'm going to give this a really good shake before I use it, and I'm going to keep shaking it up. every 2 or 3 minutes just to make sure that it's shaken up really, really well. When you're using any type of liquid fertilizer as well, make sure you shake it really well before you use it. And I always mark on my container what I've got in there. And this is ready to use. I don't water before I use my fertilizer anymore. I used to, just to be on the safe side. But I have applied this directly to the bark or to the moss or to my water culture orchids, and they are absolutely fine. It does not burn the roots, which is a really good thing. Now, after saying that, if your plant is really thirsty, if it's been a while since it's had a drink and it really is a little bit dehydrated, I would water it in that instance. But just for regular watering, I have found that this is absolutely fine to go ahead and use. And I'll end the video with another close-up of Buddy. And I just hope you all are having a fabulous day and be highly favored, deeply loved, and greatly blessed. And we'll talk to you all next time.